Hey guys, I'm just doing a video on taking a Stalker ATR battery, old battery that is no longer working anymore, and rebuilding it basically. It's a very simple process, but here's the Stalker gun itself. Should be able to see that. This is just a standard Stalker ATR. The battery slides in right here. Just slide it in like so. It pops in, and your gun's ready to fire. I do not have a battery for the gun. I have just the cigarette port. So I bought this for cheap because it doesn't work, but it's a good shell, and this runs the factory battery that is inside this is a 1.5 milliamp battery, and it runs at 7.2 volts. So for replacement, I just got a it's called Racer's Edge. It's a 1.8 milliamp, 7. You can see it there. It's 7.2 volt, 6 cell, a NiCad battery pack. So I don't have a charger for the gun. I mean, for the gun's battery pack, and the charger from Stalker is, I believe it's a $170. So I couldn't justify spending that kind of money for a charger. So what I'm going to do, which thanks to Vortex and some other guys who have done this, is I'm going to replace the battery pack in here, which you'll see is it's the same type of deal as this. It's just basically an RC battery in here, and I'm going to let this pigtail here, the charger, come out of the bottom of this so I can charge it. So one side of this has fake screws. These screws are just for looks, and the other side are the actual real screws. The one I ordered cheap, it's missing a screw, but it's very sturdy, no big deal. I'll pick up another screw to put in there. So first things first is going to take off the screws to open it. Let's remove the screws. And I know I had this at an angle, I couldn't get it directly behind me. I hope this is sufficient enough for you to see what's going on. And yeah, that soldering iron is, it's a great thing about butane soldering irons. They just really pick up. I mean, they get hot quick. I'm actually turn it down a bit. I don't want to burn it up. Run the fuel out on it. Put the heat down just a touch. Get back to this. So just getting it out, and you'll see how similar this is. And they charge quite a lot of money. I don't even know if you're going to order these anymore new, because the Stalker ATR guns are somewhat dated now. Okay, invariably didn't get that one quite all the way out. Let's see about now. Yeah, there we go. Alright, 3 screws, put that over there. This should be good to open up now. Maybe you can see that gap better when I open it. Yeah, you see there how that gap, as I open it up, there's that bit of a gap there, right here. Not sure the purpose, maybe just for ventilation, but there it is. So we'll open it up here, first look at the old, okay, purple. I've not seen purple in any videos or anything, but this is tape. I wonder if this one's actually been redone at some point. It's a bit of corrosion, that's to be expected. Okay, so you see here, this is you want to pay attention to this. The wires up here, wish the light was better on this. The wires up at this contact point here, this contact point is going to slide out. You want to make sure when you put them back in that you get these wires in there where they're not going to get pinched. Okay, so I'm going to slide out this contact here at the top. Okay, and then get the battery pack out, which this one's not even held together. Most of them will have pieces of tape around them, and the foam is often on the other side. Well, there's two pieces of foam often. I'm just going to leave that foam where it is for now, and we don't need the batteries, of course, but you see this is just going to be 6 sets of batteries that are going to add up to 7.2 volts. Let's see, and you want to pay attention to your positive and your negative. Don't want to get those mixed up. These have tabs, which make it a bit easier. Bending them up helps with soldering, or desoldering and soldering. Just don't forget to bend them back down, of course. First, you can always tell on batteries what's positive and what's negative. If you don't know, is the ones that have the button top and aren't flat up top. I don't know if you can see that detail there. That's always going to be positive. And the ones that are just flat across, no button, no nothing, just coming across, that's always going to be your negative side. And this is basically, this whole deal is basically your positive, your ground, and there's one extra wire here that is a temperature probe. It just monitors the temperature of the battery pack itself, you know, so it doesn't get too hot. And we'll start the desoldering. Basically, I'm just going to take the iron and heat up the solder. Well, if this tab will get out of the way. I'm going to heat up the solder here on the positive, and then that will come off easily. And then the exact same thing for the negative, which yeah, the exact same thing for the negative. And then this whole piece, which is all you need out of the entire thing, will come off. And then this will be trapped. So let's get this heated up. And the reason I bent the tabs up is just a little tip so you won't heat up the whole entire battery pack. So you see how easy that is. You let that cool for a second, and the positive, I'm covering it with my hand, but the positive is off, and that's how quick it is. So for the negative, it's the same thing. We have 2 wires going to the negative. Let's see. Just remember that. So heat that solder up there, and both of them are off. That easy. Remember, all you need. This is the remember, this is going to slide back into the top of the gun with the new battery pack. This is the temperature probe. You want to make sure this is tight to the battery. Black for negative, red for positive. So let's take this out of the way, and then for this, I'm just going to grab a knife because I have to get to the battery pack here. This is a new one. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing here. I'm trying to be camera friendly without blocking what I'm doing. I know I'm going to put my hand in front of it here, but just getting this loose here. This is just like just a plastic wrap, basically. I have to get up under the cap. I need to sharpen my knife, take off the plastic there, and then undo this. Okay, and then the cap here will come off, and you can see on this pack, it's the same deal. It's going to be 6 batteries. This is a very large gauge wire, very good solders on this, and I can already see it's tabbed. That's fantastic. And I'm going to solder again the same way, or desolder. Heat up here for the positive, and then heat up here for the negative, and this whole section will come off. And these wires are too thick, so I'm going to put in a smaller gauge set of wires, if you can see the difference there. So I'll lay this down on the table, as I said. These thicker wires have a good deal more solder to heat up on them. There it goes, wire 1. Positives off. And then negatives off. Okay. So there you have it. I'm gonna make sure they're cooled down adequately. Don't burn yourself or anything. And then now the cap's free. This is you know, this could be used later for something else, but this is too large for my application. Okay, at this point I am going to measure out approximately what I need on this smaller gauge wire to cut off and have, you know, yay much coming out the bottom. That looks about right. So I'll hold it at that point. It's a rough idea. And then this I will cut. Should be fair. Always cut longer than necessary at first. Which these are terrible, terribly dull. There we are. Now that I have that, let's separate the wires. Razor blade would be a little better for this. Just need to get it started. Make sure the sheathing stays intact, and the battery pack itself, it's going to be fine. You don't need to make these incredibly long. I'll show you what's used on this. This is incredibly small wire, so you don't have to worry about going with smaller gauge. But you see how small the actual leads are here. So it'll focus in. Very short on the wires. It doesn't take much contact when they're soldered in. The camera will focus in. I think you get the idea there. But the positive's going to go to positive, and then these two negatives are going to go to the negative. If you need to add a little solder to the ends, if they came off, you can do that. Just get it, just get your solder, you know, get it there and heat it up, and just drop a little drop on it, which I actually did on one of these leads, just so it would be very easy. So I'm going to go ahead at this point. Now that I have this cut to the approximate length that I would like to use for the battery, for the pigtail, smaller gauge, I'm going to strip off just a little bit. Probably strip off a little more than is needed from each side, and then cut it down a little bit. Let's get some cutter sheet. You see, these are just a touch, so I'll probably cut this in half. Something like this. That looks pretty good. And then cut that there. So this is what I'm going to work with as far as the leads on the new wire that has the pigtail on it. So I'm going to solder these in first. Again, just make sure you remember what's positive and what's negative. You don't want to have to go back and redo everything. So obviously this side's positive and that side is negative. And these wires, red and black. Red's positive, black's negative, in case you happen to not know that. So let me tap these on. Alright, this negative lead had a great deal of solder already on it. So, should work fairly well. Watch your hands with this. Stuff gets hot in a hurry and travels down the wire itself. This in, and on this one I'm going to do the same thing just for peace of mind. I'm going to put just a tap of solder on it over top. You do not have to do this. This is just my own personal preference when dealing with this stuff. I like to really get it on there good. And you see, I did that. I put a bubble in it. It desoldered. There it is. Perfect. Well, that's absolutely perfect. It's a bit bulky. We'll see if that's a problem. So now we have that on. The pigtail is good. And it's going to run down the middle of the battery and come out the bottom just like so. So at this point, once you get your wire, your charger wire, if you're going to do it this way, if you're not just rebuilding a pack and already have an ATR charger and you're going to you don't have the charger, and you're going to allow a pigtail to run out the bottom so you can hook up a regular cheap charger, RC charger to it. You want to solder those to it, and then you want to grab the main guts here with the temperature probe and add those two. Once again, positive, positive, negative, negative. You have two negatives here, and then you have a singular positive. Going to straighten those out a bit, and we get, just goes this way, so I'm gonna drop the positive on there first. Okay, now the two negatives, try to do them together. Put this down for just a smidgen. Get these two where they're going to stay together. And be careful because it's going to get hot quick. The heat travels down the wire. The insulation only will protect your fingers for so long. I can already feel the wires very hot at this point. So those are on. Is it cool? Test your connections, make sure they're nice and solid. And there you have it completed. You have the tab that's going to run back up to the side of the gun here, and then the temperature probe, which is running off of this, which is a negative and a blue, is going to run down. You want that to run down the middle and be touching the battery pack. I'm going to use some tape for that, as you'll see. And then this I'm going to run down the middle as well along with that, and it will be just like that. After you have everything soldered, you want to test fit. You want to ensure that your screw holes, let me get some light on it. You want to ensure your screw holes are open, that your soldering you did and the wiring is open. So you may have to do some adjustments depending on how you soldered everything, and make sure it's nice and flush. And then grab the top of this and make sure it closes as it's. I feel confident with the way this is going together. Now, as you can see, when I pulled it off, this is not the finished result, but it is pretty close. All I'm going to do is use a little tape. Since it didn't have tape, most of the time you're going to open this up and you're going to see it's going to have some tape already on it. So I don't know if this was rebuilt before or serviced. I'd imagine so. The screws, it's missing a screw. Screws look a little stripped. So I'm just going to take a little tape. My soldering iron shut off. Hope it's not out of gas. Good thing I'm done with it. Alright, and the temperature probe is the main thing that I just want to ensure is going to stay attached to the battery pack. You could remove some of this sheathing if that made you feel more comfortable. Get right on the metal of the battery. But I feel comfortable the way it is because it's going to get hot either way through that little bit of paper basically that's on it. And then this, none of this is to hold this together. It's just to hold that temp probe down. Don't want to block the temp probe though. And then this, I can really let it hang free. That's what I'm going to do. So at this point here, I have this in the gap. Make sure this is in solid with a gap. I have both negatives on the negative side. I have the positive on the positive side. The blue and positive and negative go up to this part, which you should never have to desolder. And I have the temperature probe aligned down here, and just put a little bit of tape there just to ensure it's going to have good contact with the battery pack. And that's for overheating. And this I'm just going to let hang loose. Personal preference. You can take that up as well if it makes you feel more comfortable. And now I'm going to put the pack together here. The other end. I'm not forcing anything. Just letting it go together naturally. And you just want to make sure this is there. The grooves, the spacing is good with it. This comes out, there's just a touch resistance, but you see there's it can actually move in there, so it's great. That's why I had to use the smaller gauge wire. And so now time to put in screws. I'm going to take my screwdriver. Tighten them down all the way. I'm gonna just get them in there. Somewhat, and then tighten them fully afterwards. Okay. You see this little gap going, and this will close it. And then down here, make sure there's still good room there. Okay. And the final screw. Let's see what it looks like. That last screw is going to be beneficial, but it's not necessary. You can see the bottom and the sides, no major gaps. So the ultimate test comes right now. Alright, so the ultimate test here is going to be to plug it in. This is all up to standard. Everything's nice and tight. The gaps look good. The connection looks solid. So the test to see if this works is to slide it in your gun. So there it is, sliding in the Stalker, and you and I will both see if this works. Let's push the power on, and there we are. Test out okay. Push test mode again. 40 miles per hour. Test okay. So we're good. Transmit. There's constant on. Squelch is on, but I don't even. You can't see it, but aiming at a car, and you heard it just for a second there. But that's it, and that's how you turn a dead battery pack into a brand new one, basically. The equipment, just to show you once again really quick, I'll let you look at it, and this is 1.8 milliamp battery, 7.2 volts. That is the wherever it says it right here. 7.2 volts is what you want to be sure that you buy. Rechargeable 7.2 volts, and make it be at least 1.5 milliamps, which would be 1500 on the number here, or above. I wouldn't go above 5000. I would stick, between 1.5 and say 3. That's just my personal opinion. You can do what you like. And then this is the charger that I bought because I would need a way to charge it. And the individual one I got was just in a thread, and so I just went with what Vortex used, I believe it was. This is Team Tenergy Universal Smart Charger for 6 volt to 12 volt batteries. It's got 1 amp mode or 2 amp mode, and it's self-explanatory. You basically plug and go. That's what it's going to look like. So this thing is ready to go. I hope that helps everyone. If you have any questions about doing this, feel free to post in the comments, and I will do my best to answer any questions you have. And once again, I'll plug it in just to verify it's still working. Just put the power, and there we are. Test mode, testing out okay. So I think that is a success for the first time. Hope you guys enjoyed the video and help some of you guys. Take care.